The Holy Gospel according to John. Glory to you, O Lord. When Mary came where Jesus was and saw him, she knelt at his feet and said to him, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who came with her also weeping, he was greatly disturbed in spirit and deeply moved. He said, "Where have you laid him?" They said to him, "Lord, come and see." Jesus began to weep. So the Jews said, "See how he loved him." But some of them said, "Could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man have kept this man from dying?" Then Jesus, again greatly disturbed, came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone was lying against it. Jesus said, "Take away the stone." Martha, the sister of the dead man, said to him, "Lord, already there is a stench because he has been dead 4 days." Jesus said to her, "Did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God?" So they took away the stone, and Jesus looked upward and said, "Father, I thank you for having heard me. I knew that you always hear me, but I have said this for the sake of the crowd standing here, so that they may believe that you sent me." When he had said this, he cried with a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out." The dead man came out, his hands and feet bound with strips of cloth, and his face wrapped in a cloth. Jesus said to them, "Unbind him and let him go." The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. I'm not sure what it says about me as a person that 2 of my favorite days on the church calendar have to do with death. First, there's Ash Wednesday, where we are honest about our human condition, our sin, our brokenness, our shortcomings, marking our foreheads with ashes and remembering that we are dust. Then today, there's All Saints, where we remember the saints of the church and the saints of our own lives, particularly those who have died in the past year. At St. Philip, we read their names and we sing our responsive refrain. Other churches and traditions light candles, ring bells, or even assemble altars with photographs of departed loved ones. From an outside perspective, if all you knew of the Christian liturgical calendar were these 2 days, you might think that ours was an especially dismal and morbid religion. And yet, what I love about these days is their refreshing honesty as we confront our human frailty and the reality and inevitability of death head on. That's not exactly a wildly popular move in our culture that tries to avoid both. Maybe that's what makes grief so hard. And maybe therein lies the gift of this day, allowing us to name our losses and our grief and to experience healing and hope, even in those moments. And with that, we interrupt this sermon for the children's message interlude. I don't see any physical children with us, but this is for the online crowd. And as always, all of God's children are always invited to come forward if you want. I do need my notes though. And I can still use the children's message chair. Have you ever felt sad about something? I think we've all felt sad. And we do different things when we feel sad, right? But I've got a special story today about someone who was feeling a little sad. And it's a story called "The Rabbit Listened." And let's see what happens. One day, Taylor decided to build something. something new, something special, something amazing. Taylor was so proud. But then out of nowhere, things came crashing down. The chicken was the first to notice. Cluck, cluck, what a shame. I'm sorry, this happened. Let's talk about it, cluck, cluck. But Taylor didn't feel like talking, so the chicken left. Next came the bear. Roar, that's my best bear voice, by the way. Roar, how horrible. I bet you feel so angry. Let's shout about it. Roar, roar. But Taylor didn't feel like shouting, so the bear left. The elephant knew just what to do. I don't know if this is an elephant noise. Trumpeta. I've never heard an elephant make that noise, but I can fix this. We just need to remember exactly how things were before. But Taylor didn't feel like remembering. So the elephant also left. One by one they came. The hyena, hee hee! This is going to be a real Emmy-winning. Let's laugh about it. The ostrich, gulp. Let's hide and pretend like nothing ever happened. The kangaroo, tisk tisk, what a mess. Let's just throw it all away. And the snake, shh, let's knock down someone else's. But Taylor didn't feel like doing anything with anybody. So eventually, they all left until Taylor was alone. In the quiet, Taylor didn't even notice the rabbit. But it moved closer and closer until Taylor could feel its warm body. Together they sat in silence until Taylor said, "Please stay with me." The rabbit listened. The rabbit listened as Taylor talked. The rabbit listened as Taylor shouted. The rabbit listened as Taylor remembered and laughed. The rabbit listened to Taylor's plans to hide and to throw everything away and to ruin things for someone else. Through it all, the rabbit never left. And when the time was right, the rabbit listened to Taylor's plan to build again. "I can't wait," Taylor said. "It's going to be amazing." The end. I love that story because when Taylor was feeling sad, as any of us feel sad from time to time, different animals came by and tried to help, and Taylor wasn't really ready for their help just yet. But then when the rabbit came, the rabbit just sat there and listened. And sometimes I think that's one of the best things that we can do when other people are feeling sad, just to be there, to listen, and to make them feel like they're not alone. And that's true that even when we're feeling sad, right? That we know that we don't have to be sad alone. Because no matter what we're going through or how sad we are, we know that we're never alone. We have all of the people around us. That's what this day is about. And we know that we can always talk to Jesus in prayer too. Interlude over. Whoops. Sometimes I think children's stories are more profound than even some grown-up stories that we read. But this simple story names one of the things that we hold at the heart of this day, that grief is complicated and it looks different for everyone. Whether we remember our loved ones who have died in the past year or many years ago, or whether we remember the now over 5 million people around the world who have died from COVID-19, parents, grandparents, children, co-workers, neighbors. And even for those of us whose lives haven't been especially or directly touched by loss this past year, still we live with the reality of those who are close to us or even ourselves who are getting older, maybe sick. In confronting our losses and naming our grief, we experience healing and hope. The rabbit didn't force Taylor to grieve in a particular way or on a specific timeline, but the rabbit's silent presence, just being there, helped Taylor to experience a range of feelings on their own time and in their own way, until Taylor was able to make plans to build again, not ignoring the loss or trying to remember and fix things exactly as they were before, but doing something new entirely. From loss and grief emerge healing and hope. This year's readings for All Saints, as the text on the front of our bulletins points out, have the most tears. In the gospel text, even Jesus weeps with those who weep in one of his most profoundly human moments. And while we barely get half the story today, the raising of Lazarus, as it's often called, fills the first 44 verses of this chapter of John, even though, interestingly enough, only the last 2 verses have anything to do with the raising of Lazarus back to life. I don't think this is so much a story about the raising of Lazarus as it is about the death of Lazarus and the profound impact of loss and grief that had on the community. The real power of this story for me lies in what comes before. First, Martha and Mary weep. Their brother is gone. They grieve that Jesus didn't come sooner. Their religious community and their neighbors join them in their grief and weep with them. And Jesus, seeing all of this, himself becomes greatly disturbed and deeply moved. And Jesus, too, begins to weep. This is a community collectively gathered to weep and to mourn their brother Lazarus' death, because grief is not a thing that has to happen alone. Like the solidarity of the rabbits who listened and offered Taylor its silent and patient presence. Like the ever-expanding circle of those who gathered with Martha and Mary to weep at the tomb of Lazarus. Like our own gathered assembly this and every Sunday, we remember that we do not grieve alone. We do not weep alone. We do not journey through this life alone. From loss and grief held in community emerge healing and hope. That's the core of this day. One of my favorites on our liturgical calendar, a day that, yes, acknowledges the reality of death, but doesn't end there. Today we remember our mortality, our humanness, and more. We pause and reflect on the saints who have died. We draw strength from the witness of their lives, and we draw strength from those who still surround us in the flesh. And ultimately, we draw strength from our Savior Jesus, who at once pauses to weep with us, greatly disturbed and deeply moved by loss and grief as any of us, and who also promises that he is the resurrection and the life.